We're with Patrick, and this game caught my eye. Tell us what we're looking at.
So you guys are looking at the Mages of Mystralia, which is a action-adventure game along the lines of The Legend of Zelda, except that in this game, the player designs his own spell. So where in Zelda you would use items like bow and bombs to progress through the game, well, in our game we instead ask the player to design a spell that will have the perfect behavior to complete a puzzle or to advance further in the game. So as you can see, the game has a deep lore and a heavy narrative. It's being written by Ed Greenwood, who's the author of the Forgotten Realms. He helped us a lot put some depth into the world that we're creating, both for the dialogues, but also, just creating a background story for every little bit of detail that we put in there. So every dungeon, every area has its story, so it makes it very interesting, I think, for players who are interested in the exploration. But at the same time, we have a gameplay, I think, that suits the players who are more into, action puzzles, like the classic action RPGs or action adventures out there. This is an early level. It's still being developed. One of the first areas that the players will be able to use is first spell, which is a melee spell. Obviously, at first, you cannot modify it a lot, so once in a while in the game, you unlock new runes and new behaviors that you can add to a spell canvas that will modify the behavior of existing spells in your inventory.
So you're kind of able to create your own unique combination?
Exactly.
So it'll be different from everyone else, I suppose?
Exactly. So, of course, we encourage specific combinations that are important for puzzles, but overall, especially for the combat situations, the players will really be able to create some pretty fancy stuff that even us have not any clue that can exist in the game. And we've had a proof of that yesterday when we started showing the game to the public for the first time. People surprised us with combinations that we didn't think of when developing the game. It's still early, so more than a little over a year of development into that game, and still 1 year left in development. So we'll be able to do plenty of more areas and maybe add even a few more runes. We're thinking of, as a next step, adding the nested spells feature, which is something we want very much. So having spells cast a new spell when they hit something or when a specific situation occurs. So for instance, you could have an infinite fireball that kind of roams through the level and just destroys every enemy in its path, one enemy at a time. So it's something that might be possible to do for an advanced player at a point in the game. But for now, especially in the beginning of the game, we want it to be a smooth learning curve, make sure that every player has fun, just enjoying the game, the beautiful levels that we're making, and also learning to master the spell creation mechanics, which are obviously a little bit more hardcore than if you play a Zelda game, and this is totally understandable.
Right. Now, you say you still have about another year in development. What things are you going to be focusing on for the next year? What refinements are going to be made?
One thing for sure is the menu, because we have none. Well, we have a placeholder menu with designer art in it, so this is one of the first things that we're going to tackle. We're ramping up our team in the next months to address that issue, and we are working on porting the game also on other platforms, because we want to make a simultaneous release with at least one console. We're thinking currently of PlayStation 4. Other platforms will come also at a later date, but for now we're thinking of Steam and PS4. So
you're going to be doing Linux as well for Steam?
Well, again, this platform will come at a later time. We don't have specific release dates yet, but we're thinking of Linux and Mac, of course, for Steam, but it's not in the schedule yet.
What development platform did you guys go with? Unity or?
Yep, we're using Unity with many improvements on our side, because it's quite a big game, and when you make a game this big for indie, I mean, it's getting quite big for indie. And
speaking of big, that guy.
Yeah, Lardy. People like this guy a lot. It's the first boss in the game that the player will encounter. It's a mini boss. So eventually it becomes a casual enemy in the game.
During the development of this game, what was the most difficult aspect of working with Unity?
We love working with Unity. I think the most difficult aspect is, like I was saying, it was meant for smaller games in the early versions.
Right.
And so
didn't have as much access to the source code and everything.
Exactly. So this is something that bothered us when we started ramping up production, getting more people in and working together as a team. At the time we were using Unity 4, it was not the best tool for that. Now they're getting better and better, however, so we're getting somewhere. When I was saying that we can create our own spells, well, in the game, if you use an orb, it will just do this thing here. It lasts for a few seconds. If an enemy runs into it, it will explode. But we add runes that we unlock through the game, like move, for instance, which makes it move. So now it becomes a fireball. And this is true for all the runes that we have in the game. We have like around 30 that we can add. So they all add their own behaviors. And we also have some that will, like time, that will modify an existing behavior. So time, if I connect it to the move rune, well then my fireball moves faster. So it's like 50% faster. So this makes it very useful for some situations like this boss fight here. We tried to make the bosses as epic as possible. We're all, old school gamers. We love the, Zeldas and Marios and Star Fox games, and so we're big time fans of old school Nintendo games. So obviously we had to take inspiration for that, for making an adventure game. That would be our first step was to see what we like from our past as gamers and try to get inspiration from that. So in the story, this treant here is polluting the forest. So he's corrupting the creatures inside. So that's why we have to fight him off. It's actually the first boss that the player fights in the game. After beating that boss, the game becomes much more of a free roaming adventure where you go in a hub, like Hyrule Fields, for example, and you just hop on from area to area, find new dungeons to explore, find new runes to use in your spells, and this is pretty much the cycle of our game, the main cycle of our game.
Now, a couple more questions. This is obviously one of the first bosses. He looks a little easy. Yeah. How difficult do you expect the game to get toward the end?
We want the game to be enjoyable by everyone. But if you're a hardcore gamer and you really want some very hardcore difficulty challenges, well, you'll be able to have that in that game also. First, because we're adding tons of secret area that are extremely hard to find, which contain hard, bosses or mini bosses.
Right.
We're also planning on adding some sort of hardcore mode or replay mode that opens up once you finish the game. So we might be able to tell the player, well, start over with all the spells that you learn. You don't need to get all these runes back. You can just continue where you are in terms of character development, except that now, your everything is super hard. It's something we have in mind. It's not sure yet if this will be unlocked only when you finish the game or if it's something we want to be permanent.
Well, it's looking really good so far. I can't wait to see what we have in the next year.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. And everyone in the comments, let us know what you think. And thanks very much.
Hey, no problem, man.
We decided to swing by and check on the progress of the game below. It's a game I've been following for a few years now. We checked this out 2 years ago at PAX, and they weren't here last year. And it's a game that looks kind of a little bit like old school Zelda, but has, you guys can obviously tell this flavor is similar. There's hearts, there's grass that they can cut down, and that was something that's been added now that chopping down grass and whatnot and being able to get power-ups. Where this differentiates from a game like Zelda is that you only live once, so it's kind of a roguelike, but it's not a roguelike in this way. When you land on the island, there's all kinds of mysterious stuff happening, and when you die, your corpse stays there. So when you return to the island as the next person, that's the way the game works, you play each person who finds the island, your corpse is still there, and you can go and loot your corpse. They've added something else new to this version of the game now. Possibly it's going to add a little bit of micromanagement, but also it's going to allow you to store your items. So there's going to be some fire burning or some pyres or whatever. When you find these, it will allow you to access a safe room. And in this safe room, you can store some of your stuff. And that will be there even if you die. You can come back and some of your items will be there. This also can be used like later in the game if you want to store stuff and then return, and maybe you need more torches for a certain area of the game. You can return and grab some more torches and just leave them there. Now they've also updated the lighting system. You'll see that the volumetric fog is a little thicker. There's now real-time shadows you can see behind the character there. That's all being cast real-time thanks to the new lighting system. So it's looking pretty good. Particles are looking good. Really looking forward to this one. Another Zelda-esque game, but this one's a little darker with a bit different play style, but it's going to be out this summer. If you think it looks pretty cool, check it out. It'll be on Xbox One and then also PC. And they said only Steam for now. Not good old games, but who knows. Special thanks to Corsair. Check out their booth coverage for the new Cherry MX exclusive extremely fast Switch. They've upgraded one of their old mice with a very nice infrared sensor, and we've got some pretty interesting technology going on with the Lua scripting on some of their keyboards. So check out the booth coverage, and also if you're at PAX, stop by and see us at their booth Sunday, 2 o'clock. Be there or be a dodecahedron.